Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Take Back My Brain. I am your host, Laurie Hammer, and today I have with me Brittany Cano. She is a holistic nurse, and we're going to talk about a busy woman syndrome and how to cultivate this life of freedom outside of that. And so I'm excited for this conversation because, I went to nursing school, but I've never worked as a nurse, just so you know. But my sickest patients are nurses and teachers. And so I want to know, Brittany, how you came to this, holistic mindset, because it's really hard in that field. So thank you for coming and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you, Laurie. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So I would love for you to tell our listeners, just give us a little bit of history about you and how you got into holistic nursing. Like I said, nurses are some of the sickest people that I see because they're the most stressed out, just for lots of different reasons. And so just kind of give us an overview.
Sure. So I became a nurse. Well, I've been in nursing almost 20 years now. I wanted to help people, of course. I actually wanted to be a psychologist. My mom was like, go to nursing school. She was in nursing school at the time. And I'm glad I did go into nursing. Definitely came at it from wanting to understand mental health because I come from a family of, mental illness. And also, how do you live a healthy lifestyle? I'm from the Midwest and definitely know all about unhealthy living.
Right? We were
And
just
like
talking
you
about
said,
that.
nurses being unhealthy, definitely you think, you come to the hospital to get better, but
Yeah.
definitely a lot of unhealthy habits. So I'd say about 5 years into my career, I was seeing that some patients got better, plenty didn't. They were coming back into the hospital. We're only able to get you so much better in the time that you were there. And
Right.
then, I don't know what happened to you after that. And around that same time, I was undergoing my own healing journey.
Okay.
So I had been, I would say, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually unhealthy in a lot of ways. And I was at this crossroads of, okay, if I keep doing this, it's not looking good for me, right? Like you have so much resilience, you can get away with so much, in your teens and 20s, but at some point really starts catching up. So I knew that was coming if I didn't make some changes. And so really my own healing, as well as just realizing how much is preventable in the hospital setting. I had a patient who was a code blue. Her heart had stopped. She came to ICU. She was young, early 60s.
Wow.
Heart disease, type 2 diabetes,
Right.
so many things that were preventable. And I just remember saying to myself, okay, I've got to help people not end up in this
We have to shift
situation.
people's lifestyle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really where things changed a lot. And I started on that more wellness journey with people and continued my own healing journey, which is always evolving.
Yeah, that completely. We always have our own, traumas and toxins, emotional, physical, chemical things to work through. So, yeah. Did you have some personal?
Yeah, so I
Past with that?
up until this point, which was a little over 10 years ago, I suffered from severe gastritis, like severe heartburn from early teens to here I was in my mid-20s, heartburn all the time. And once and I would just like go out, party with my friends all the time, lived with a lot of shame,
Right.
like really just identified with shame. Couldn't stick with healthy habits. Like I'd exercise for a week or two and then I'd stop.
Yeah.
Just, didn't eat really well, overate, binge ate, all of that. And so once I started doing all this healing work and addressing the traumas, my gastritis went away, which I thought was miraculous. Because no amount of antacids and Prilosec were cutting it. And then all of a sudden I didn't have it anymore. So for me, that was like, holy wow. Everybody who wants to know about this, I'd love to share with them that we have the choice to really heal our minds, heal our bodies. We don't have to keep in the same cycle or pattern, because I wanted to change. I just had no idea how to do it. And so once I figured out, oh, we can interrupt these patterns and create a beautiful life.
Right. Yeah. So how did you start the interruption? How did you change?
I did this life transformation training. So I worked with different life coaches, and the training that I did was very somatic.
Okay.
And that, like, we did inner child healing. It was a lot of like exercises that showed us how we showed up in life. which was really brutal and hard to see, but so powerful in really seeing where I was limiting myself and the stories I was telling myself. And so once I was able to really start to question my thoughts and then have that support system, and also a really strong reason why I wanted to change, which was because I knew my future didn't look too bright if I continued that route. And I stuck with it, right? Like I started noticing like how my mindset was changing, but I knew that if I just did it once or twice a week in here and there for this training, I'd probably go back to my old habits. So I really dedicated my life, really, my path now is to continuing to grow and to heal and know that it's a lifelong journey. Because at the time, I think I thought I could just take a class or, figure it out one shot. And now I know that that's not the case.
Release that one memory and then you're totally fine.
Let me tell you, Laurie, I was like, okay, I did these trainings, so I guess I have life figured out and I won't have any more problems moving forward. I realized, oh wait, there's always lessons to be learned.
Right. I mean, because everything builds on each other. Everything is building.
It does. And then back in 2017, I really started a mindfulness practice. So that has been huge in my journey as well. And like befriending my mind and life.
Yeah.
Without getting
as a man thinks, right? As a man knows he
makes such a difference.
Yeah. So let's talk about the busy woman syndrome, because most of my listeners are going to be women. They're stuck in that pattern, like, kind of addicted to busy. Like how do you teach people to break out of that? What's your strategy?
All right. So first we need to be aware that that's us. And as a busy woman, you're going to listen to this and you're going to be like, probably like, either you're busy and you don't see any other way around it. You're like, these little people, my parents, my job, everybody depends on me. Or you're going to be of the mindset of like I was, and that I'm not doing enough. Like I should be able to do more. Yeah. Right.
There I am. Yeah.
Even though you're doing all kinds of things and everyone else around you is like, you do so much, in your mind, it's never enough. So that's a good indicator that you could be a busy woman. And then the next thing is, how are you engaging with life? Are you rushing from one thing to the next thing? Do you feel like you're never catching up? Do you feel like you're in this cycle of go, 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 go? It's hard to rest. It's hard to shut your mind off. If you do, many times it involves some kind of substance,
right?
Or it comes to the point that when you shut your mind off, it's because you've crashed out and then you can't get out of bed for days, or you're sick, right? You got sick, so that forced you to slow down. So I would say, starting with the awareness, like, do I have busy woman syndrome? And so there's one thing to be productive, fully engaged in life, and feeling more like you're choosing what you're doing, right? And more in that flow state and getting a ton done, serving the people in your life, versus I have to do this.
Yeah.
This is like, if I don't do it, nobody else will do it. I hear that, a lot from people, like, well, if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. And
I've said that.
Yeah, there's definitely truth to that. And then looking at what are the thoughts and beliefs that are having me think I need to be everything to everyone and do everything. So that's like the first step, is recognizing that, okay, there's an issue here or problem here. Like, I'm drained. I'm just outsourcing my life to all of these tasks. And at the end of the day, like, there's not really a whole lot left for me, right? There's not enough, like, a lot left for me to just really enjoy life, because we're spending so much time in this productivity model, which yes, we need, but then can be that imbalance. So I look at it as like being in sympathetic dominance. So, our nervous system, we have the parasympathetic that rest, digest, reproduce, and then sympathetic, fight, flight, or freeze. And so much of the time, what I find with the women that I work with is we're in that fight, flight, or freeze all the time. Yeah, we might not even recognize it because it's our normal.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, this is just the way my life is. Okay. And that is the way your life is, but it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And so like so recognizing that that's you, and sometimes the mind will tell you, no, that's not me, but your body will tell you
Right.
otherwise.
Yeah.
So like things that your body might be telling you is not being able to sleep, insomnia, or you're exhausted all the time, headaches, irritability, can't focus, GI issues, whether it's diarrhea, constipation, bloating, nausea, gastritis, upset
Right.
stomach, heartburn. Maybe your relationships are suffering. You feel anxious, even autoimmune. I really got this from Dr. Libby Weaver's work. She has the rushing woman syndrome, and she talks about how this being in the sympathetic dominance, that always on the go, it wreaks havoc, right, on our
Yeah.
hormonal system. So,
Yeah.
some people my clients come to me, they're having 2 periods a month, or
Yeah.
they're younger and they're really wouldn't be perimenopausal, but because of stress, they haven't had a period for 3 months because of the lifestyle that they're under.
Yeah.
So, this constant need to go, 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 go. I can't slow down. I can't stop. The weight of the world is on my shoulders. It affects every area of our life. And if
Yeah.
it's not affecting it now, eventually it does, and
Right.
it's coming from that place of
Yeah.
like such dire urgency and such heaviness.
Right. And I always tell my clients, like, so you can either choose to change now, we'll do testing and stuff. And we're like, okay, your adrenals are, toast, your hormones are, all whacked out or whatever it might be. So you can make choices, like you can choose to change it or your body will make you change it later. Like, and so which one's going to be more comfortable if you have the choice or your body crashes and you end up with some, like a heart attack or an autoimmune condition, or you're just so busy, you're just so tired that you fall off the edge of the sidewalk and you break your leg. Like you have to slow down then, right? Like you can't keep going. And so I love your message here. Like you either have to change or your body's gonna make you change in a very uncomfortable way that you don't want to.
Yeah, I want to encourage listeners to really take this, bring curiosity to this. And if you identify yourself in this at all, like look into like, how can I create that balance in my life? Because so much of the time we're not resting. We're really truly not resting. We might be leisure, right? We might be watching
Oh, that's so
TV,
good. Yeah. Leisure
right? Or
resting.
reading a book or talking
Yep.
with a friend, but we're not truly resting, and we wonder why we're wore out, right? We wonder why we're irritated and annoyed and like frustrated. We aren't even resting. And that's a big distinction that I didn't know personally. I thought I was resting because I was enjoying, these leisure activities. But then when it came down to it, I was realizing I had such a hard time turning my mind to calm, even with like having a meditation practice, calming things down. But once like we're aware of it, I think awareness is really the first step.
Mhm.
And then we can do so much from there. It's like the awareness and then the willingness to say, hey, okay, what do I really need here? What's going on? And bring that curiosity to our beliefs to see if they're either building us up or breaking us down.
Right. And then being super intentional, like you were talking earlier about that consistency, being intentional with a consistency and making those small habit changes.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be anything really massively major, because that can be a bigger stressor on the system.
Right.
So,
Right.
it could be like, I have to change my entire life. I'm this busy woman. I can't do that. So I won't do anything. So I want listeners to hear, like, it can start as simple as like taking 5 minutes,
Mhm.
mindful breathing, checking in,
Yep.
evaluating, asking yourself, what do I really need right now? What do I really need today? And then building upon that. So we all have 5 minutes, even the busiest
Oh yeah.
person listening.
Yep.
um,
Yep.
and keeping it simple, right? Keeping it simple, but looking at the big picture of our life and finding out, how do we create that
Oh yeah.
balance? How do we get back to a homeostasis,
Mm-hmm.
especially if we're, dysregulated and rushing around everywhere
I
all the
know, I
time?
know. I teach my clients, the ones that are like in the office, because if I feel like I need to take a pause, I'll lay on my floor, put my feet up on my treatment bed, right? And then
I
just
love
breathe
it.
for 5 minutes. And I realize some people can't do that, but even if you just go into the bathroom, don't lay on the floor, but just go into the bathroom,
Don't lay on the floor.
don't lay on the floor, shut the stall, right? Just shut the stall. And well, hopefully you shut the stall anyway, but sit in the stall and then just breathe for 5 minutes, while you're sitting there, because you shouldn't be on your phone when you're in the bathroom anyway. And so you're kind of like boxed in, and just give yourself that permission. If you don't feel you can do it any other time, I mean, I would prefer that they went outside and did a walk or whatever, or something like that. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get away and I have to go breathe, that's something that you can do, and nobody's going to bother you in the stall.
Yeah, we have to take those times. We have to, advocate for ourselves, because nobody else really knows what's going on within us. And if we say yes all the time, they assume that it's fine. So we got to make sure that we're looking out for our best interest, and the best interest, of course, of who we're working with, the people in our
Right.
lives, because we're interdependent. And I'd love to add on to what you shared, like with the breathing down into our belly, relaxing our shoulders, letting your out breath be a nice long out breath as you breathe out. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel if you're in the bathroom, feel the toilet underneath your behind, or if you're sitting,
Right.
but practicing those grounding techniques, getting yourself, back to that sense of internal safety.
Right. And you teach emotional freedom technique, don't you?
I do. Yes. Do you teach
Yeah,
it, or do you practice it?
I do. So could you maybe just do like one technique that you could teach my listeners that they could implement?
Yeah, so emotional freedom technique, in case listeners aren't familiar with, it's also known as EFT or tapping. So we tap on different acupressure points throughout our body. And when we do, it lowers the body stress response, lowers cortisol level, also helps connect the mind, the emotions, the body. So if it's tapping on the side of the hand can be one that's
Okay.
easy. I already feel calmer doing this. So there's different sequence points, but for the sake of simplicity, I would say either tap it on the side of your hand or tap it on the collarbones, sternum area, just nice and gently. And you might already, if you're joining us doing this, you might already start to feel that body's response to less stress. And so when I do the emotional freedom technique with myself or with clients, we'll address whatever issues going on. So it could be like being under stress, feeling anxious, having cravings, and then we'll address whatever the root issue is, the thoughts that are coming up, the emotions, and we'll tap through. And then when we finish, as we finish up, we'll bring in what it is that we really want. And a lot of times people will see different perspectives of the situation. They don't feel so stressed to this thing that once felt so big.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, this feels good.
Yeah. I know, I feel so much calmer already. So I'd say those are the
Listeners,
easiest.
yeah.
Yeah, tap on your collarbone points, your sternum, or the side of your hand underneath the pinky finger on that cushy point of your hand
All
there.
right.
With the three fingertips.
Yeah. It's huge. Very good.
That.
All right. So you're doing a lot of releasing as you're doing that. So talking about mental health. So we're talking about busy women syndrome, doing some releasing, mental health. Like, what are some other things that you teach your clients to do to maximize, their brain capacity?
Mindfulness, like I had mentioned just a little bit ago. So mindfulness really is that practice of being in the present moment as it is. So sometimes people will think that the goal is just to feel good. And while it's scientifically proven to lower depression and anxiety, it's also that non-attachment, right? So knowing that when we're suffering, when we're having a hard time, that's not going to last forever. It's okay. And then the same thing when we're like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. To feel it, enjoy it, and not be so attached to it, because that's going to change too. So it's really practicing being in life as it is, and from a place of non-judgment, from that place of curiosity and kindness and compassion. So I teach clients how to do that through such things as mindful breath. We breathe like 20,000 plus breaths a day, and we don't even know we're breathing half the time, right? We don't acknowledge it. whether it's through mindful eating, slowing down, really connecting with your food, tasting it, using your senses, considering all the things that brought that food to our plate, right? The elements, the farmer, the people in the grocery store, all of the things, right? Just taking that time to really be present with our food, mindful walking,
Mm.
noticing, our senses, our sense of sound, smell, taste,
Right.
touch, sight, and then questioning the thoughts, right? With curiosity, because sometimes we take what our mind tells us is a fact.
Right. It's like set in stone.
Yeah, and it's like, no.
No, don't do
And
that.
that's huge in our mental well-being to really
Right.
like question, okay, is this really true, or am I just totally making this up, or am I bringing my past into the present?
Right.
So first we have to be aware that we're thinking, then we have to, take the pause and bring in that curiosity of like, what am I thinking? Does this support me? Is this true?
Right. Those are
So
such key questions,
practice.
especially, is this true or did they really say that? I think is really key. I know I have a lot of young ladies that come in and they'll share a lot of things with me, or they'll share about a parent or something like that. And, so we perceive things different depending on what age we are, right? And so I think it's really key that we ask ourselves those questions, because I'll ask those young ladies, I'm like, okay, that's a really valid feeling that you have, so that you're angry or you're anxious or whatever. I said, but did the other person really say it in that manner? Like, was their tone the way that you shared it with me? And just kind of questioning not their perception, but at the same time, their perception, right? So just questioning, and they're like, well, no, they didn't really say it that way. It's just the way that I took it on, and so if teenagers are doing that, I know that I'm doing that, right? And I know, and I'm 50. So we kind of carry those things with us. So if nobody points them out to us or ask those questions, and as we get older, it's not somebody else's job anymore. It's our job to say, was that really true? Did my husband really say it in that tone? Did he really mean that? And a lot of times it's like no and no, so what did he really mean, and why did I take it that way?
Yeah, it's like, what's the story
So
I'm telling myself about this?
exactly.
Right, a situation really is neutral, and then we bring all of this meaning. So if we're going to bring the meaning, really, reflecting, is this meaning empowering me, or is this a meaning like tearing me down? And it's like, what is the reason I'm bringing all this? Sometimes we know why. If we go down that route, we can, pinpoint it to something in the past, and other times we don't know. But then it's coming back to, what's going to support my highest good right now? What's going
Oh
to
yeah.
support this situation?
Yeah. And I think growing or coming around people, or putting people around us like yourself or myself or friends or whatever that can ask us those questions. Like my mom died last January, and I was having a challenge like in April, May, June,
Of
and this
course,
and I was,
yeah.
it was a long journey. And so when she died, there was a relief, right? There was a relief, and like, okay, I'm really glad that she's not suffering anymore, okay, now we can move on with life, those types of things. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what is going on with me? And my friend goes, maybe you're grieving. I'm
Right,
like,
we
I
need
never even,
people around us to tell us that. We can't see what our blind spots.
they're like, but I'm glad that she's not suffering. She's like, that doesn't mean you don't have grief.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and we're letting ourselves have our experiences too.
Right?
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So do you deal with grief? Like, can you address that? Like, because there's other things other than people dying, right? There's grief about so many things. And I think in our society, we don't allow ourselves or acknowledge that we really need to grieve. And I feel like that's probably a piece of something that you work on with people.
grief, yeah. So the way I look at grief is that we all experience it, right? If
Mhm.
we're really connected to our life, to ourselves, like we're in tune that we experience grief. It can be from the loss of a loved one, and it can also be from the loss of the kids moving out of the
Right.
house, right? And going to college. Well, although that's beautiful and you're happy they went away to college and you raised your
Yeah.
little people to be, productive, constructive adults out in society, there can also be the grief because there's that loss of a
Yeah.
dynamic that you loved, right? In a relationship, there can be breaks in trust, and there can be a grief with that. So the way I look at grief is that it is a normal experience in this human life, whether it's losing somebody to death or whether it's, loss of something that is dear to us, that there's always that dynamic of
Mhm.
grief. And for me, it's like allowing ourselves to grieve is very important, because we can bypass that and we can go straight to the lesson or straight to the silver lining, or want to just get through the grief. And from my personal experience, I find that it will come back, like it comes back around. If you try to rush the process, it shows up and it keeps coming back. Like there's
Here's
the
a
whole,
test.
it will come back. There's no really rushing it. It will show up in other ways and other dynamics. And so being really tender with yourself throughout the grieving process, have that support system, giving yourself time, giving yourself space. And then, once you've started on that, and right, there's no strict timeline. It can be some things we might grieve our whole life.
Right.
And there can be an opportunity for growth and grief. I worked with a grief mentor for about a year, maybe a little longer. And that
Okay.
was something that was really great with working with her, was like, where is this opportunity for growth in the grief? But again, we have to make sure we don't bypass
Right.
the sadness, the anger, the denial, the shutting down, all of that, allow ourselves to go through all of that.
Right. So how do you explore the growth in the grief?
How do I explore it? I encourage clients to, be honest with themselves about what they're experiencing.
Mhm.
First of all, whether that is all of those emotions that, typically come with grief. And then discovering what is the growth opportunity. It's going to be different for everybody.
Sure.
Whether it's just to say, you know what, I loved fully, right? There's an opportunity here. There's a growth because I love fully, and this has shown me to just continue to love fully. In
Right.
some situations, it might be, oh, this has showed me how strong I am. The lesson's going to be unique for each individual. And I would say it's okay if you don't find growth in it as well, too.
Right.
Giving yourself that grace, because sometimes we don't ever come around to that. And that's that mindfulness piece, like finding that okayness with that as well.
Right. Right. So you've been on this journey for a while, right? Coming out of nursing and doing your clients and working through your own stuff. What do you have to say to people, like kind of like where you are now, and when people are like, I still feel stuck, or I still am dealing with this, like, what do you have to say to the journey of all of this?
This is so important, because we can I find myself guilty of this too, in the mindset of I'm not there, wherever there is.
Yeah.
Or right, I don't have these things that I'm trying to, like, I'm stuck. I don't have this, I don't have that. This is where I am, right? And so to look for the ways in which we actually have what it is that we want in our lives. So looking for all the ways in which we're actually not stuck.
Right.
Whether that's like, oh wait, I have a great relationship with so and so. I got out of bed today. I got up and went for a walk. Because the more we tell ourselves I'm stuck, the more our mind's going to be like, you surely are stuck. And
Right.
we're going to bring more stuck experiences to our life. If we have that belief system. So really questioning again the belief, and looking to see, like, what are the obstacles that you're facing, and then
Mhm.
what support do you need? How do you need to set yourself up for success? Because if we really want to get out of unstuck, I think that's a place to start too. Do we really
Right.
want to get out of unstuck, or do we want to stay in our comfort zone? Like,
Right. Yeah.
I ask clients, like, what are you willing and have some desire to do? Because we
Yeah.
can tell ourselves all these good ideas of things to change, but if we really
You don't want
don't,
to.
yeah, then we're going to stay there. So getting honest with yourself. And we have benefits, right? There's some goodies when we stay stuck, right? Like, we're in our comfort zone. We don't have to face the unknown. We don't have to face, the fear of potential failure or success.
Mhm.
Like the mind loves, what is it, cognitive dissonance, when
Oh,
we go to
cognitive dissonance.
change.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to change. Like, it's too hard.
Yeah.
We see all the challenges. So being honest with yourself, like, do you really want to change this thing, and why? Right? Why do you want to change it? And then it's like,
Right.
what support do I need? How do I get there? Because I would say trust that though. Trust that intuition that, hey, I want to get out of this spot. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this spot, maybe. And follow that. When there's a will, there's a way, because there's guarantee there's somebody who's been in a similar situation that you have and who can help you along your journey. There are resources out there. We have 8 billion people in the world. We're all different and very similar. So there, there is some support out there, and you can actually get unstuck.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so true. So what do you want to leave our listeners with?
I would love to leave our listeners with the idea, the belief, the gem that we have the power to create our inner calm and peace. We have that power to create our inner sanctuary. And that is such a superpower when we can really learn to self-regulate and take care of our needs, because so much of the time we're outsourcing it to our situations, other people. And so having those practices that help bring that peace, whether it's meditation, whether it's dancing, music, getting heart to heart with yourself and tuning into what it is that you really need. Because so much of the time we may not even know what that is. It's just,
oh, true.
it's a superpower, and we can all do it.
Yeah, that is
a practice. It's a practice of a superpower.
Practice it, and then it becomes powerful.
Yes. And it's always a journey too, though. It's like being able to hold that, like, it's an ongoing process, and we can have it now.
Exactly. Oh, that's so good, Brittany. So good. So where can people find you if they want to look you up and follow you?
Thank you. Yes, my website's the best place, because then from there you can find me on social media. So it's holisticnursecoaches.com. There's an ES at the end of coaches. So if you go to my website,
yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your vulnerability and just, sharing from your heart today. So this has been a great episode. So thank you, Brittany, for coming.
Oh, thank you so much, Laurie. And thanks for the great questions. I love the questions that you asked, and connecting with you and hearing your stories as well and what you shared.
Awesome. Awesome. And I know the audience is loving this as well. So thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this podcast with everybody that you know, so that we can get the word out and everybody can take back their brain. Thank you very much. And I will see you in the next episode.